Dave Rubin, thank you so much. Scott, thank you for being here. You know, Dave Rubin introduced me to a whole generation of young people. Dave accuses me of having turned him around, but I also want to credit you with introducing me to a whole bunch of young people who didn't know who I was. God bless you. Scott, I know how difficult it is being conservative in Hollywood. They are brutal. They are absolutely brutal. God bless you. And thank you all for coming out on such a hot day to hear what I have to say about how I'm going to bring this state back. You know why? Because we got a state to save. Thank you. You know, when I was first approached to run for governor, I was not interested. I've never run for office before, unless you count fifth grade class president. I took 3 rows out of 4. They're still cleaning up the blood. But I thought the state was almost ungovernable because 2/3 of the members of the Senate are Democrats. 2/3 of the members of the Assembly are Democrats. So I assume whenever I veto some stupid job-killing bill, they would be able to override the veto. Turns out they haven't overridden a bill that's been vetoed in almost 40 years. What happens is you go public, because Schwarzenegger vetoed a lot of bills, even Jerry Brown vetoed a lot of bills. You go public and explain why it's a job killer. Next thing you know, the phone starts ringing to the lawmakers, and the constituents say, "What were you guys smoking?" So you have a lot more power than I thought. There's also the power to declare a statewide emergency. I have a line item veto. I'll be appointing members of these very powerful commissions. I'll be bringing back sanity to Sacramento. This man shut down this state. He shut down this state to the point where 1/3 of all small businesses are now gone forever. Sitting up there at the famous French Laundry restaurant with the very people that drafted the mandates that they were not abiding by. They were not wearing masks. They were not engaging in social distancing. His own kids were enjoying in-person private education while denying in-person education to the 80% of the students in our government schools who are black and brown. I only mention their race because the left prides itself on caring about black and brown students. And before the pandemic, 75% of black boys could not read at state levels of proficiency, and those levels are not high.
Shame.
Math scores are even worse. Half of all 3rd graders in our government schools cannot read at state levels of proficiency. And again, the math scores are even worse.
Shame on them.
Polls show that black and brown parents want choice in education. They want the money to follow the child rather than the other way around. We're spending $15,000 per student per year, and our test scores are near the bottom. Only about 17 or 18 states spend more per year than what we're spending. And yet, black and brown parents, even though polls show that they want choice in education, every single election time, pull that lever for the Democrats. The number one obstacle to school choice is the teachers union. The most powerful union in the state, teachers union. The number one funder of my opponent, Gavin Newsom, teachers union. Not teachers, teachers unions. Nationwide, around 10% of American families have their own kids in private school. 6% of black families do. There was a study that looked at where public school teachers send their own school-age kids. Philadelphia, 44% of public school teachers with school-age kids put their own kids in private school. Chicago, 39% of Chicago public school teachers with school-age kids put their own kids in private school.
Can you blame them?
Los Angeles district, public school teachers with school-age kids are more than twice as likely to have their own kids in private school compared to households that do not have public school teachers in them. That is the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, putting up a sign saying, "Come on in, eat the food." I sure won't. You are being betrayed. And what they're afraid of is that Larry Elder from the hood, who went to a public school, will be able to make the case to black and brown people, you are being betrayed. You are being used. You're being manipulated. As I mentioned, 1/3 of all small businesses, because of the way he slammed down this state, are now gone forever. Young lady said she lost 2 businesses. And many of these businesses are owned by black and brown and Asian American people that the left prides itself on caring about. 1/3 of all small businesses gone forever. Thank you for your service, sir. A third of all small businesses gone forever. One of the things I bring to the table is I ran a small business. And it didn't go bankrupt. I didn't liquidate it. I sold it. And it kept going on for years and years. My point is, I know how difficult it is to run a business. You know what you call a business owner who runs a business 9 to 5? Bankrupt. You work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And this man shut it down. And so the hopes and dreams of people who mortgaged their homes and worked all those hours, gone forever, while he exempted his winery from the very mandates he was putting down the throats of everybody else. It is outrageous. And we have the rise in the cost of living because of the stranglehold the environmental extremists have had over Gavin Newsom and over Sacramento for decades. You know, the average price of a home in California just hit $800,000. Depending upon the survey you read, that's anywhere from 150% to 250% above the national average. And when people are leaving California for the very first time, middle-class people cite as the number one reason for leaving they cannot afford the price of a home. The rate at which businesses have left for the first 6 months of 2021 is double the rate at which businesses have left California the last 3 years. In fact, more businesses have left California so far this year than all of last year. They are leaving, and they're citing the cost of living, high taxes, and excessive regulations. There's a magazine called CEO Magazine. It's been around 17 years. For 17 years, I've asked business people, which is the best state in which to do business, which is the worst? Based upon taxes, based upon spending, based upon the power of the public sector unions, based upon the quality of public schools, based upon whether there's a business-friendly or business anti-friendly attitude. And for 17 consecutive years, California has been determined to be the worst state in which to do business. 17 consecutive years. 17! And a lot of people don't care about rich people, but my father always told me I never got a job from a poor person. And our state income tax has the highest state income tax rate in the nation, 13.3%. So anybody making above $350K pays 13.3% for every dollar above that amount, on top of federal taxes, on top of onerous sales taxes and property taxes and gas taxes, to the point where people are leaving and they're taking their incomes with them. The largest revenue stream for California is the state income tax. 1% of families pay almost half of all the state income taxes. So when these billionaires and millionaires leave, a lot of people just yawn. They're taking their tax base with them and their revenues with them. And as a result, less money for schools, less money for fire, less money for all the things that government is supposed to do. Crime is going up. I'm not suggesting that because during the coronavirus, 20,000 felons were released early, many of whom were violent offenders. I'm not suggesting that might have had an impact. I am saying it had an impact. 20,000 convicted felons released early, many of them violent offenders. What could possibly go wrong? A few days ago, Barbara Boxer, the former senator, was mugged in Oakland. Her cell phone was taken. A few months before that, a mentally ill homeless person attacked Gavin Newsom. Had Gavin Newsom not had his security detail with him, who knows what would have happened? How many people can walk through our urban streets with a security detail?
Not me.
Not me. Not us.
Homelessness is rising. When Gavin Newsom ran for mayor in 2004, he promised to solve the homeless problem in San Francisco in 10 years. Have you been to San Francisco?
Nasty.
And when he was lieutenant governor, he sat around pounding the table claiming he didn't have anything to do. How about fulfilling your campaign promise you made to people of your city in 2004 to deal with the homeless problem? And it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Depending upon the survey, California has anywhere between 25% or 50% of the nation's homeless population.
They did it on purpose.
And the government does not know what to do. What they have is a housing first policy, building housing far more expensively than would be the case if the private sector built it, by the way, without dealing with the underlying reason why people are on the streets in the first place. Some percentage, we don't know what the percentage is, some percentage are people who are schizophrenic. By that I mean of danger to themselves and to others. They need to be removed from the street for their own safety and for the safety of the homeless population and for the safety of the non-homeless population.